Francisco Ramos, what's up? How you doing?
Good. How are you? How you doing?
I'm great. I'm great. I'm glad to have you on the program. How's everything going on where you're at?
Oh, it's good. Well, here I'm in LA right now, so now it's nice and sunny. It's getting warmer now. It's been very cold, like this winter that we have here. But now it's getting warmer, so it's going well.
Well, since things are now kind of slowly opening up, have you got a chance to do any recent live stand-up shows?
Yes, yes. So this past couple of weeks, been getting more the chance to be able to do more gigs outside. So it's been great. A lot of them. I mean, here they're all pretty much outside. So, but it's good because the weather here helps with that because it doesn't rain that much and the weather's nice. So yes, it's been going great.
Are there any specific venues that you're excited to return to?
Well, I think it's funny, I guess the main comedy clubs that are still not open
Yeah.
because obviously they're inside, like the Comedy Store and the Comedy Magic Club and the Improv and the Laugh Factory and the Ice House and all. They're all like the main haha. They're all the main clubs around here, and those are the where I would perform the most. But what's fun is that these new places that have been popping up outside shows, they're doing a really great job, and I think maybe hopefully they stayed after this whole
Okay.
thing because I think they work and also gives more spots and more shows for comics to perform, so that we don't have to just there's not a limited amount of spots.
I'll tell you one thing that I've taken for granted before, the COVID and quarantine is just enjoying comedy clubs. Just and
Mm,
sometimes I'll just go by myself. Like usually, like you see a lot of people like come in with other folks,
yeah,
but it just kind of like I just stopped doing it. Like as for going alone, and I like it. I now that things are opening up, one thing that I've gotten a chance to finally do is go to like just open mics just to watch as an audience, like to any bars, and I'll have it on my schedule.
yeah.
And I just love it. It's kind of therapeutic for me just to have a good laugh during these tough times.
Yeah, no, it's fun. I think I never thought about it going because I never been kind of obviously I was being on the comic side, but yeah, I think it's be fun I think
Oh yeah,
comedy stand up shows are good to go by yourself because I just say as long as you don't sit in the front
oh
because
yeah,
then if not comics we're gonna just be like
oh
why are
yeah.
you here by your and then it's just gonna be but like I think it's a cool one to you because you can definitely enjoy it. I think it's better than other stuff that you could do by yourself, which is like, I don't know, going to the movies or,
Yeah, yeah.
I think a little still kind of interactive, what I
Yeah.
mean?
Well, even though you haven't got a chance to do a lot of stand up during these times, you actually got a chance to do some voiceover work. And one of your gigs that you had during your voiceover work is playing Walter Mercado for the Cartoon Network show
Yeah.
Victor and Valentino. So, how was your experience doing that?
Yeah, that was really fun. I mean, that one, luckily, I got the chance to record it before the whole pandemic started, but it came out during the pandemic. So it was really, I mean, that was like really cool to be able to do. I mean, first of all, because I remember growing up when I moved to the US, like listening to Walter Mercado, like
Yeah.
in Univision, like he was like a staple thing. So, like, and the cool thing too is also like I got it through a friend who used to work there, and he's like, "Hey, do you do impressions of Walter Mercado?" And I was like, "Or do you know who?" And I was like, "Yeah, I mean, I can do one, And it
Yeah.
luckily kind of worked with what they were working for, so it was really cool to be able to do that, and to especially because also that's when the whole his documentary happened
Oh,
too
yeah.
that came out last year, and it kind of like it was at the kind of like at the same time when that happened, so it was
Hmm.
a couple of coincidences, but that was really cool to be able to do that.
I'm actually a big on horoscopes. I'm a big believer on horoscopes. And I would say maybe like
Mhm.
growing up when I was very young, my mom's from El Salvador. So she always had Walter Mercado on. And like whenever he was,
Mhm.
giving out his horoscopes, and
Yeah.
she always made sure like I can't speak Spanish. So she would translate to me what he would say for like
Cool.
my horoscope, which is Sagittarius.
Nice.
I would say I'm a big believer of horoscopes because of him.
Oh, wow. Yeah, no, it's funny. I still read horoscopes here and there, like I do it like cuz yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that I like cuz it's not it's kind of like it's kind of like superstitious, like being
Mhm.
superstitious, to me, like where I'm superstitious in some things,
Yeah.
but it's not a thing that like, oh, like it's life or death, or like I don't take it, like it's not like religion or something like
Yeah.
that to
Yeah.
me, but I still kind of like, well, you know what, it doesn't hurt,
Yeah.
why not, like, yeah.
I'll say this, I mean, especially if you're having like a bad day, or you're going through a rough time, and you just so happen to come across your horoscope,
Yeah.
it's usually something positive to tell you to, it's like a good thing to bright up your day.
Yeah, that's a great way to look at it. And it's also sometimes even like, yeah, you might be struggling with something and just gives you like a little advice, or like a little pat in the shoulder of like,
Yeah.
kind of like to look things in a positive angle that you might not be looking at. And I think that's why also I like about it. Yeah, because it's never negative. It's not
Oh,
like,
yeah.
hey man, you're gonna die in a week. It's like, I don't want. I mean, I wouldn't be reading that if that's the
Yeah.
case.
It's always like you're gonna meet someone positive, or you're gonna accomplish something, or you're gonna work on
Yeah. Yeah, but and then some things you're like, oh yeah, or something. I think it's just, yeah, I think it's good advice. Paulo Coelho as a author, so like, sometimes I have like a thing where I read his best things that he has done from his books, like little quotes that he has, and to
Mhm.
me those are like same as horoscopes. They're like good reminders of like, oh yeah, like, good positive reminders.
Yeah. So what got you interested in doing voiceover work?
Well, it's funny. That was the first thing that I did, that I got. That was like my first credit, when I moved to LA. Because obviously I moved to LA to do first. I moved to LA to do improv comedy, but then I started doing stand up.
Mhm.
So I was doing stand up, but I didn't have any credits or anything like that. Not even a manager or agent or anything like that. And then a friend of mine recommended me to his friend who was a casting director at Fox, and then I went in like, and I auditioned for a voiceover, role, and it was for the movie Rio,
Okay.
that came out a while back, but it was like, but that was, I mean, I got it without like, I mean, again, I never thought I was gonna do voiceover. That was never a thing that I like. My
Yeah.
intention was to be do comedy. Obviously, I love acting too. That's what thing.
Yeah.
But voiceover was never a thing in my thing, and yeah, I love it. And now, no, it's because animation has evolved so much. It's like you can do so many other things without animation. It could be adult animation, it could be kids, it could be, there's so many ranges.
Yeah. So are there any cartoon or anime characters that you would be wanting to do voiceover work for?
Um, I mean, I love Modern Family. I mean, not Modern Family, sorry, Family Guy. I don't know why I said that. I
Okay.
got confused. But like, so I think, out of the ones that are like current right now that are, Family Guy would be like, I would love to be a part of, or be a voice in that. But I think to me, hopefully the horoscope says that I can book a role in a regular role in an animation that's new, that becomes as famous as Family Guy, and then that'd be good. Then I'm set, because that'd be the great. That'd be like winning the lotto, because
Oh, yeah.
getting like becoming a regular in an animation show, that's like, I mean, you are
Oh,
like
yeah.
pretty much set.
Oh, yeah. It's funny about Family Guy. I mean, I don't know if they're like pushing at least over 20 years or 20 seasons or something around there. But I know they've been out for a while. But if, I mean, I was a fan with them from the very first episode when it came to Fox.
Oh wow,
Yeah. And I think, I want to say it survived only like 2, 3 seasons, and then it just stopped suddenly showing up on Fox,
yeah,
but they would do reruns of it on Cartoon Network for a couple of years, and it slowly built up, I guess, a new following in which they just reopened and started it, the Family Guy
yeah.
episodes, and now it's like obviously popular.
Yeah, no, it became, yeah, that's true. It became, because I do remember, I never remember watching it from the beginning, but I do remember that it wasn't like popular, and then
Yeah.
it got canceled, but then it came back. And well, yeah, I love their style of like the way that they write, and that's another one that I would love to write for. Even not to be, even if I wasn't part of it, I would love to write for them, because their humor is it's kind of like very similar to how I think in terms of writing. Like
Uh-huh.
I love when they do flashbacks, that like
Oh, yeah.
that every flashback that they do. To me, I love that tool to be able to use it, especially with animation. It's so easy to do it.
Yeah.
And I love that they really go for stuff. They really go. They're not afraid to. They're always on the line of like of comedy, like of almost crossing that line, but they don't go back, and it's like, but it's always still funny. So I
Yeah.
love that too.
Yeah. It's funny about adult cartoons, and I don't think people really realize it, but they can really teach you something growing up. I mean, talking about Family Guy, which is associated with, The Simpsons, I would say I learned a lot
Yeah.
and plenty of people can say the same thing. They learned a lot from watching The Simpsons.
Yeah, no, I mean, I remember watching The Simpsons growing up, and then even in Venezuela when it was like in the Spanish voiceover, which was obviously when I came here was different. I was like, oh, that's Homer sounds weird, like. And but I even remember my first cartoons that I remember watching that I liked, that now that you mentioned, is the Flintstones.
Okay.
The Flintstones, like I remember because my grandma used to love watching them, so I would watch them all the time too. And like, and yeah, they were in a way you could. I mean, even though they were cartoons, they were still kind of like, now that I think about it, or I mean, it was like like a sitcom,
Oh,
like
yeah.
a had a
Yeah.
family, had a
Yeah.
job. It wasn't like.
Mhm.
So to me, that was like the first one that I remember watching and enjoying the animation aspects of it.
But you mentioned the Flintstones, and I'm thinking of now I don't know if I'm saying it right, the Dinos. It's that dinosaur
Dino,
family.
yeah, the
Yeah,
dog,
that
yeah,
was like a family-oriented
yeah,
show, I think, it was like a TGIF show kinda thing, like a
yeah.
family sick but it was dinosaurs. It had its funny moments, but, I mean, if people aren't remember it or familiar, I mean, they all get extinct in the end, like, at the very last episode, and it's serious, but
Yeah.
yeah, stuff like
And what
that
I
can be
love was the creativity of those cartoons, like the Flintstones, and remember also Hanna Barbera's, like the whole stuff. For example, of like how they would use what you knew, like the microwave or the vacuum, but they would, in prehistoric times. So it was like an animal just being the vacuum, or like,
yeah.
and he was the one eating stuff. And, so I remember loving that, because that's where the imagination comes from, of
Oh,
like, how
yeah.
do I make a vacuum in prehistoric times? How do I drive a car in prehistoric times? So I love that.
Hey, you got me going on cartoons, man. I could go all day talk about. Well, I want to talk about something that pretty cool that you do is that you play tennis, and it's actually interesting because it helps you with your comedy. How does tennis help you with your comedy?
Yeah, no, well, it's funny because tennis, another thing that I kind of stumble on, I think now that I think now you're like opening me and thinking, like, a lot of the things that I've been successful in my life has been stumbling into it, like,
Mhm.
because tennis was a sport that is kind of like the one that I learned the latest in my life,
Okay.
but it's the one that I had the best. Like I remember, like I was like, oh, I have the best ability of it. Like, and I wish going
Okay.
back, I was like, man, if I would have started tennis like when I was like really young, maybe I could have been. I'm
Oh
not
yeah.
professional, but I could have been like good, because
Oh
I
yeah.
have the ability and the mindset of tennis.
Hmm.
And but yeah, I started playing tennis with my dad a while back, and then my sister had a boyfriend who was like a tennis instructor, so I learned tennis from him.
Okay.
And then that led me to do then uh, teach on tennis, on kids tennis, summer tennis camps, which eventually that led me, when I was here in LA, and I quit my I majored in finance, and I quit that job. That's when I needed a job to kind of supplement, obviously, because the money, and tennis was that one that still helped me kind of like have that bridge between,
Okay.
comedy and making some money. And yeah, and tennis, to me, I related so much to stand up, because it's so first of all, it's like, tennis is mental. If people don't know tennis, it's like it's 80% mental, like 20% skills. Like it's
Hmm.
such a sport that, like, if you lose your concentration, you could be up, and then all of a sudden you forget, and then you're down. And stand up is that way. You're the same thing. It's like when you're on stage, you could be doing great, for 10 minutes, and all of a sudden you said one thing, or you did one
Yeah.
thing, and you lost the crowd. And if that messes you up, then the whole set is over. And same in tennis, if you miss one shot and that really gets with you, the whole game match is over. And so yeah, I think tennis and stand-up are very similar. You have to forget, you have to have a short memory, you have to always adjust to your opponent.
Mm.
It's very individual, it's very mental. You always have to practice on your own stuff, but every match, every set is completely different, even if you're doing the same things. You know, so yeah, I think tennis. I always recommend tennis to people, and even as just a way to about learning about life and about yourself, because it's a very individual sport, and you're not obviously playing with somebody else.
Do you have any favorite tennis players?
Yeah, I mean, well, growing up, when I first started, because I also, that's the thing, I learned tennis. I never took kind of like lessons until later on, but when I learned tennis was watching tennis on TV. I would watch Sampras and Agassi. Those were the main ones I remember watching. And
Mhm.
then obviously now, like, to me, yeah, Roger and Federer and Nadal, Rafael Nadal, have become my favorites. I think to me those are I mean, two greatest players ever. Fed, the way he plays, it's like how, like, if you would build, like, how to do it, how to play tennis, like how to swing the racket, how to, like, he does it like the perfect way, but like in such an easy, like a ballet, like just like
Oh, yeah.
smooth. And Rafael Nadal is like the opposite of him, but it's like his mindset is such a, it's like he never gives up. He could, like, and he always, like, he could be up, he could be down, he plays the same intensity. He's very positive, never makes excuses. And so I think those two are my favorite for sure.
I know when Roger Federer first started, one thing that, and he's obviously, I mean, one that's his strength is on grass. So, some like places like Wimbledon where you
Hmm.
be on grass. Like, I mean, you mentioned that he's like does ballet because he just slides on those grasses.
Yeah, it's no effort at all. It's kind of like, and it's, again, it goes back to, stand up or any art form or any work or anything. It's like, it's the effortless of it, like, it's such a, like, when things become effortless and you kind of like just do it, that's how you get the best results, in anything. Stand up is the same way. When you're just being yourself and you're not pushing anything, you're not trying to be funny, you're just in the element of it,
Hmm.
and that's when, like, you will get the most laughs.
Well, and you mentioned that you were studying finance. So, what were you doing before you got into comedy?
Yeah, for comedy, so I definitely wasn't a person who, like, I'm gonna do comedy. When I grew up, it's like, I'm just gonna be a comedian. Like, I knew that I was in a I grew up in that bubble where, like, family and society tells you what you're gonna do or how you're gonna live or grow up. Even though my parents weren't like, you're gonna do this, not like that, but indirectly, kind of like, well, you're gonna study business, you're gonna study this, and, like, you know and that kind of was like the thing in my life growing up. It was like I would do what other, like, either what my friends would do or what my family would tell me,
Yeah.
and I never thought of, like, what do I like, and that
Mm,
hated it. Like, literally, I was like, this is like, ugh, this is not good. Like, what? I don't like this at all.
yeah.
And and that was like the first clue of, like, this is something wrong. Obviously, I graduated, I got a job at an investment firm, and I started working. But then I kept going back to that weird of, like, I don't like what I'm doing. Like, all my friend, and I was like, I was comparing to my friends. I was like, they were so happy in their jobs. I'm like,
Yeah.
and they already had, like, I'm gonna do the MBA and this and that, and my mind going, like, first of all, I wasn't passionate about that, and also I was going, like, I don't like knowing that what I'm gonna do. Like, I could tell right away, like, if I kept doing what I'm doing, I knew how my life was gonna be.
Yeah.
And to me, that was very boring. I was like, I don't wanna know, like, so I do this,
Yeah.
and then I take this, and I get married, and then I did
Yeah.
this, and then, and I was like, and that's when I started, like, literally, like, what I call self therapy, because I never went to therapy, but what I started doing is when I was in, I would go to Barnes and Nobles, and just like read self-help books and read books about like how to find your career, how to find your passion.
Mm-hmm.
And two of the books that I mean, there was one book that, man, I always never get remember the title. It was always is basically it was like, you don't know what you want to do, but or something like that. But
Mm-hmm.
this book would tell you how to like give you like little exercises on how to find
Okay.
what you like. And I remember the first exercise was like, all right, you don't know what you like, but at least write what you don't like. And
Yeah.
everything was basically what I was doing at that point. So I was like, all right, now you know what you don't like.
Yeah.
Let's go back. And then everything started leading to clues of like how I do like making people laugh, and I like comedy and all this stuff. And then so that's what kind of triggered it. And then also another book that I read was Paulo Coelho, The Alchemist, which I was
Mm-hmm.
recommending to people, which talks about that everybody has a purpose in life, in and you just have to, and that life wants you to reach that purpose or that personal history, and that it will give you signs. You just have to be open to them. And once I started reading that, and I started like noticing like signs of people kind of like going like, like I remember somebody going like, oh, you should be, that's fine, you should be like an actor. Like somebody told me that once when I was like not even thinking. I was like,
Yeah.
yeah. And then
Oh,
I remember another one when I was like started thinking about moving to LA.
okay.
Remember going to the gym and parking and seeing a license plate that said California, and I grew up in Maryland, and I was
Mm.
like, wow, that's weird. And
Yeah.
so just little things like that, and
Yeah.
that's kind of what led me to this whole trip of going to LA, and starting comedy.
So, who are some comics that you kind of grew up watching that inspired you to becoming a comedian yourself?
Yeah, I mean, so growing up, I always, well, in Venezuela, I would say there was before when I was little, I would used to watch this show called Radio Rochela, which was like the
Okay.
SNL of
Yeah.
Venezuela. And yeah, and there was this guy, this comic who's, very famous in Venezuela, Emilio Lovera. So I remember watching him and really like, oh man, he's really funny. And then when I moved to the US, Seinfeld, like that was the first kind of like show that
Okay.
like sitcom that I watched and that my whole family watched, and that that I really like loved, and it was just hilarious. And then after that, then I started watching, you know, um, movies, comedy, then improv. I remember watching Whose Line Is It Anyways? It was
Yeah.
very popular at that time when I started. Like, I was like, that's one of the reasons I wanted to do improv in the beginning. And then with in terms of stand-ups, after I started thinking about to Seinfeld, and because of his I love the universal aspect of what he does, of even though my comedy is not as observational as his, but I
Yeah.
just love the fact that he talks about that anything that anybody can relate to,
Mhm.
and so he was one. And then Chappelle was another one growing up that I was like, obviously just because of he's just like a Roger Federer,
Yeah.
in terms of like how easy and effortless. I
Yeah.
was like, wow, like that's what you aspire to be.
Yeah. So, one character that a lot of people don't like on Seinfeld that I love the guy because he's so hilarious, and I'll go to, watch some YouTube clips just of stuff of him when his famous lines on Seinfeld is Newman. I love Newman, man.
Oh, Newman is a yeah, yeah, Newman. It's amazing how like yeah, I mean, to me that's also, yeah, one of my favorite characters. I mean, it's amazing how he took that role and just made it so
Oh,
bigger,
yeah.
because he was like, Newman was even in the first time that they mentioned, they don't even show him, and then but when the first time that he came up, actually, I think I YouTubed his first appearance on the show, and like it was such a, like, he just had such a personality and
Yeah.
point of view of that character, and he's like, and yeah, he's amazing. It's like being the bad guy. It's such a great, because I think the key of that is like it's such a real villain.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like what a villain would do if he didn't have any powers or any money. You know, it's like he just like, yeah, he's like like a Lex Luthor with no power and
Yeah.
no money, you know, but he still acts like Lex Luthor.
Oh man, yeah, I love Newman. See,
Yeah.
as you talk about it, I'm just thinking of all the funny stuff that he's.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, the fact when he gets cut for the police and he's like, "What took you so long?" You know, or when he's interviewing Jerry and like he's sweating and
Oh
then
yeah.
Jerry's like, "Why you want this?" It's like, "Why are you here?" It's like it's so great. I love that. It's so great.
But and you mentioned that, obviously you're a book reader, and I noticed that you do have a lot of books, up on your shelf right now. So are there any books that you're currently reading?
Yeah, they're all cardboard, by the way. So
Oh.
they're no, no, I'm kidding. They're all fake. No, no, I'm kidding. No, yeah. So the one that I'm reading right now is called Sapiens. It's about the history of the world, how we evolved, as you know, how the world evolved and how humans evolve, and I love it. It's a great way because it just shows you how it's it shows you how things happen in the world and why humans, like for example, one of the things that I'm keep going back and saying to people is like humans are like we're like animals, but animals that can imagine things and can create things in their.
Do you have any books that you can recommend for our listeners?
Yeah, well, first of all, the Alchemist. Yes, I think anything that's Paulo Coelho, I think that's a great way to like read that book, and that's a book that you can always read in every point of your life, and you can find new things about it. I also read this book, "The Biggest Bluff"
Mhm.
by Maria Konikova, and it's a book about this. It's a reporter, actually, this writer that basically it's like I'm gonna start playing poker and trying to get into the World Series of Poker. So she did. She took like she met with like one of the biggest uh, poker players in the world and try to learn how to do poker. But the whole thing about because I enjoy poker, but
Mhm.
the whole thing about this book is that it's not. It talks about poker in ways that you can use it for your life. You know, like how to read people, how to
Okay.
how to stuff that you can always like. For example, in the poker world, there's stuff that you can't control, others that you can. How to so it's very good for everything. For like for business, for meetings, for anything like that. It's just a great way to uh to kind of like see it from a different angle and like how do things that are and to make you a better person in terms of how to not let emotions
Mm.
make your decisions, but sometimes you're making decisions just so because sometimes like with poker you're like, oh, I'm gonna go all in for this one. It's like, are you really seeing how, and we do that
Yeah.
sometimes with life. It's like I'm gonna do this instead of like maybe that's not the right way, or don't do that right now because you're making an emotional decision
Yeah.
instead of like a logical decision. So,
Yeah.
so that one's a good one too.
Or you were talking about poker, so are you much of a poker player yourself?
Yeah, no, I play poker. I'm not good. Like I wish I every time I think I'm getting better. What's funny is like when I started reading that book, I was playing poker, like online poker with friends,
Yeah.
and I started getting better because I was like, but then
Yeah.
I kind of like, it's like everything. You have to like keep playing
Oh, yeah.
and like, and one thing is like what's fun is like with poker, yeah, you do if you are a good, like if you're a good math wizard, that helps you so much. Like I'm
Okay.
not, so like I'm not in, so like I'm more into like reading people. Then sometimes I forget like how
Yeah.
many cards or how many of this. So it's all that stuff that I like.
Yeah.
I enjoy poker just to play with friends
Oh, yeah.
and to play, or if I'm playing for like little money. But like I've never been a big gambler. Like gambling, I don't enjoy. It's not a thing
Yeah.
that gives me any. It doesn't give me any pleasure. I mean, I don't mind betting here once in a
Yeah.
while or something, but it's not a thing that I enjoy because you know, especially with like Vegas gambling, like going to casinos. Like I always go like I'm always playing. I'm money that I mean a game that you're most likely always gonna lose.
Yeah.
And it's also most with money. Sometimes I like that I do. It's not like I'm hugely rich and I'm gonna have money to spend. So it's like
Yeah.
you know what, these two things don't work for me. So
Yeah. I would say, I mean, I played a little like how you mentioned, like just something socialize with friends and kind of just meet new people along the way of just people
Yeah,
invite you to their homes just to have like poker
yeah,
fun. So, I mean, it's just
yeah.
like,
Because you do have to play poker with money, but like as long as it's not like, well, we're playing $100. I was like,
yeah,
okay, no,
yeah,
I'm not doing that. I'm like, let's
yeah,
play
like,
$10 or
yeah,
five
10,
bucks. I'm
20
cool with
bucks.
that.
Yeah, yeah. It's just,
It's
for
just more of
fun.
like a social thing.
Oh yeah. But I would wear sunglasses just because I'm actually not that bad if I keep playing with people. But thing is, I'm really
Yeah.
bad with like a poker face and everything, especially if I'm like, oh, I
Yeah.
got this. Yeah, I have to keep sunglasses. It could
Funny
be,
too, like
yeah,
how we do things, and that's the things that like when the books talks about like how our tells and all that stuff. That sometimes like how to. So it is interesting because those are the same things that we do for not just playing poker, but in any other situation.
oh yeah,
So it's like if we're not aware of that, you keep doing them, and you're kind of like always like telling people where you're always giving away your tell. So
yeah,
so yeah, it's funny. Yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I'm not. I'll enjoy poker, but I'm never gonna say that I'm a
yeah.
professional or really good at it.
Do you have any upcoming shows now that things are starting to open up?
Yeah. So well, I don't know how when this is gonna come out, but like I am performing actually. It's gonna be my first show on the road that I'm gonna be going to actually to DC, Washington DC. April 9th and 10th, and it's going to be at the Arlington Draft House. And then also I'm in San Diego. I'm doing the 16th and the 17th of April at the Grand Comedy Club, doing those shows. So yeah, so those are ones that I luckily that shows where I'm gonna be headlining, and I'm gonna be doing long, which is gonna be interesting because I haven't done an hour in like basically a year. So I'm actually bringing my I tell I'm bringing my notes. I never like doing that, but for those ones and I will address it because I was like, hey, it's been a while, so I just don't want to get lost in or
Yeah,
forget something because it is a thing that you forget. Like you even though like the shows that I've been doing right now that have been doing well, you're still getting back to it, but they're like 10 minutes, 15
yeah.
minutes, but like when you start doing an hour, that's a different animal.
Francisco, since we're wrapping up, is there anything you would like to share with our listeners?
Uh, I mean, I guess to always, do what makes you happy. I think that's, kind of like my theme have always been to always not don't settle for
Hmm.
for stuff that's just nice or safe. Like go for you know try to if you find something that's what like your passion, go for it because I think any stage in life, I think you can still do it, because there's always the excuse like, oh, I'm too old or I already have a family and I can't do it.
Yeah,
It's like you can still do it.
yeah,
There's ways you can still find and time to do it, and eventually that would lead to something else and that will lead to something else. And because I always go like, look, the main thing in life is like we're here if we're gonna spend 80% of our time in the world working, might as well do something that you enjoy, you know. So
yeah.
that's my advice to people.
Well, thanks for sharing that. Appreciate this conversation. But Francisco Ramos, thank you so much for joining us in Irie Chat and best of luck on everything.
Thank you for having me. It was fun.